argued the move marks a complete reversal of the party's earlier stance against such taxes, describing it as hypocritical and deceptive. The levy, they say, is not only one of the highest in Ghana's history, but also places a heavier burden on Ghanaians than the much criticized e-levy. Ranking member on Parliament's Energy Committee, George Abuaje, accused the NDC government of making a shocking U-turn barely 6 months into office.
Government, in a 360-degree turnaround and in a stark contrast to all its promises, has in less than 6 months imposed on Ghanaians the very levy they swore they never will. The NDC, then in opposition, swore that it will never impose taxes to pay for the inefficiencies in the energy sector. This is hypocrisy of the highest order. This is a betrayal of the public trust.
Tension remains high as the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association and the Ministry of Health have yet to receive a consensus following hours of closed-door negotiations, despite an injunction notice served by the National Labour Commission halting the ongoing strike. Public hospital services across the country continue to face significant disruptions. According to the ministry, proposals have been made to the association, awaiting their response.
We were looking at them giving us assurance that they were going to call off the strike because government has made some proposals to the nurses. They have told us that they want to go back to their council to have a discussion, and then they're going to come back to us. So we hope that by close of the day, these nurses will come back to tell us that they've called off the strike, because we in the Ministry of Health have shown a good faith to actually facilitate this particular meeting so that we can have a resolution to this matter.
The 2025 Basic Education Certificate Examination (BECE) is set to commence on Wednesday, June 11, 2025 and will end on June 18, 2025. The Ghana Education Service (GES) has announced that all examination materials have been distributed to metropolitan and district offices across the country, ensuring readiness for the exams. Director General of the Ghana Education Service (GES), Professor Ernest Kofi Davis, issued a strong warning against exam malpractice, urging candidates to uphold integrity throughout the examination period.
I will advise the student to put in their best to come out with flying colors. I will advise them not to rely or depend on APO or external support. That might not come, and that will not help them. Invigilators and supervisors who are caught aiding any form of exams malpractice will be severely punished.
There's more news on 3news.com. Make some time and visit 3news.com. This is Ghana Tonight. We're live on 3FM 92.7, also on TV3 Ghana on Facebook and on DSTV channel 279. We're all across the world on 3news.com. Tonight, coming up next, the family of the embattled former finance minister, Kenneth Nana Ofori-Atta, is accusing the Office of the Special Prosecutor of what they term as abuse of administrative power and manipulating evidence. They're demanding that the withdrawal of the Interpol red notice. Now, full details coming up shortly here on Ghana Tonight, and this is one that we're going to be looking into quite closely here on Ghana Tonight. And remember, we're very interactive. We're live on 3FM 92.7. Also on TV3 Ghana on Facebook and on DSTV channel 279, all across the world on 3news.com. The family of the former finance minister, that's Kenneth Nana Ofori-Atta, has taken on the Office of the Special Prosecutor for what the family says is an abuse of power by the Special Prosecutor. Now, key amongst their demands is a call on Interpol to withdraw the red notice which has listed the former finance minister as a wanted man. Now, my colleague Dennis Paberi-Wadam has a copy of this letter purported to be from the family of Kenneth Nana Ofori-Atta, the former finance minister. We say purported for a reason. And Dennis, why is that?
Well, we say so because this letter has been signed by an entity described as the family of Ken Ofori-Atta. It has not been signed by any identified person as a name who perhaps is signing for and on behalf of the family. It is signed off as family of Ken Ofori-Atta, and even the heading also bears the same description. But our sources did indicate to us that this indeed is from the family of Ken Ofori-Atta, except it doesn't have a name to it. We don't know why. Perhaps they know why they did so. But one of the key issues they are contending with, which they are particularly not happy about, is the listing of the former finance minister on the Interpol red notice. And we just did a quick check just to be sure that that notice is still on the website. And this is a live page from the Interpol website. It still indicates that the former finance minister is still being listed as a wanted person.
He's still there?
Yes, so he's still in there. When you click on it, then you see the details as they have been there. So nothing really has changed about it.
Right.
And this is one of the key things that the family is contending with. They are not happy. They are accusing the office of the special prosecutor of very serious matters, including a possibility of having manipulated evidence to procure a warrant, which they said is dated on the 11th of February for the arrest of the former finance minister. They also accuse the office of the abuse of administrative powers, and they go on to recount what all that has happened between the office of the special prosecutor and then Ken Ofori-Atta in relation to their correspondence as to how to fix a meeting date and the insistence of the office of the special prosecutor on an in-person appearance for interrogation in respect of some matters that the OSP has listed. They also go ahead to recount what they say has been an act of good faith in respect of Ken's conduct in relation to investigations. They make reference to a Sraj investigation. They make reference to the parliamentary censure and the like.
Let's see.
So let's get into the specific details. And yes, so this is in respect of the Interpol red notice, which they want a withdrawal of same. And their reasons for saying so or wanting that to be granted is to the effect that they are of the view that the office of the special prosecutor has engaged in what they describe as a deliberate suppression and manipulation of evidence. And this they will explain as relates to the warrant of arrest, which they say the OSP has procured. They say the court record does not show that it was procured regularly, for which reason they suspect a suppression and manipulation of evidence in that regard. They also deem all that has happened so far a violation of the human rights of Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta, and this is a matter that they've indicated is before the Human Rights Court in Accra here. Judgments in relation to this will be given on June 18, and they are expected that to the effect that the matters that are going to be determined in this case has to do with the first time that the Office of the Special Prosecutor had described or declared Ken Ofori-Atta as a wanted person, and hoping that a judgment will be given. They had hoped that, the Office of the Special Prosecutor will hasten slowly for that judgment to be given.
Until the determination of that case.
Yes, but they say that he has again been redeclared as a wanted person. They think that is a violation of his rights. They also talk about disregard of judicial processes and denial of due process, and this, they explain, has to do with the fact that they've served the courts some of the medical reports and the letter from the Mayo Clinic where the former finance minister is said to be receiving medical treatment on the court and that of the Office of the Special Prosecutor, and that was not taken into consideration in the disregard by the OSP to consider whether or not to grant him a request of a video interview instead of an in-person, as has been insisted on by the Office of the Special Prosecutor. In that regard, they think it's a disregard of the judicial proceedings and denial of due process. They also talk about a breach of administrative injustice that has been meted out to the former finance minister. After they don't end there, now they've listed some things that they say are missteps of the OSP. And these are matters that they've complained of. I mean, and there are things that they want to bring to the attention of the public, that what the OSP is doing is not right in their view. Now they are saying that they are of the view that the OSP is using the office for vendetta and political persecution. Again, they say that there's a deliberate suppression of evidence that I've explained in what context they use that. The third also, that there's a denial of institutional flexibility to permit compliance with orders. This is in relation to Ken Ofori-Atta's request for a video interview rather than the in-person.
Right.
They thought that under the circumstances, and also regarding the fact that they had said that he was, it was on grounds of ill health, he should have been given that opportunity so that when he recovers fully, he returns to the jurisdiction. That's why they made the point that at all material moments where he was needed before any forum for interrogation, he appeared. And that they should understand that in this particular context, it's because of ill health that he's unavailable.
So that's what they talk about, institutional flexibility.
Flexibility to permit compliance with orders. And also, they also complain about disregard of adherence to due process of law and to Ghana's constitution. This again, in part, has to do with the pending proceedings in courts, that a determination has to be made in a certain matter. They say the OSP has gone ahead to do exactly what they are complaining about. So in their view, that is not. Also, the matter of breach of professional ethics. You recall that as part of the human rights action before the human rights courts, part of the issues that were complained of had to do with professional ethics. That is to say that they are of the view that as a lawyer, when you choose a forum to engage with another lawyer, that lawyer cannot, on his own, decide to change that mode of communication. That is to say, the correspondence between the lawyers of Ken Ofori-Atta and the OSP were written letters. That they could not understand why all of a sudden the OSP had to go public using the media to make some pronouncements and to communicate some information to him. They deemed that as a breach of professional ethics. They also talk about unlawful declaration of Mr. Ofori-Atta as a fugitive from justice by a media briefing. Yes, that largely forms part of that human rights action. They think that declaration was unlawful. Now they say with this one, he has even done it more than once.
I see.
There's a seventh one, that's a refusal to be bound by a regulatory framework in exercising its investigative powers in the performance of its investigative functions. They contend strongly that as we speak, Ken Ofori-Atta has not been specifically charged, except an indication on the arrest warrant that says that he uses public office for profits. That, in their view, is not right, and it's outside. The OSP shouldn't have done same. And now finally, they complain of the violation of applicants' human rights as a consequence of the OSP disregard of its limits of power. In essence, they are saying that what the OSP is doing is in excess of his powers, and that's a violation of the human rights of Ken Ofori-Atta, for which reason they are unhappy about it. So, Alfred, the generality of it is that the family is not happy. And like we said, this is a letter that has been signed by the family. No individual has been indicated on a letter to have been signing it for and on behalf of the family. That's what we have before us, Alfred.
And it's a very important denominator to all of this, so we understand how the issues are playing out. But as we checked, the Interpol Red Notice, that publication is still on the Interpol website.
Precisely so.
Yes, I know we're going to put it on the screen right now. Despite the concerns of the family about this publication on the Interpol Red, the website, they're putting Ken Ofori-Atta on that red notice.
But Alfred, it's instructive to note that this is not a letter to anybody per se.
Yeah.
This, as we have it, is a press statement.
From
yes, for the general
family.
public. So it's not addressed to maybe say the OSP or to say the Interpol, except to make that call on Interpol that they want this to be taken down because of the things that they listed. They think that
but
it was
what's
not
the charge? What's the charge on the Interpol publication?
The charge on the Interpol publication simply says using public office for profit, and that's what they've maintained. That even though Ken Ofori-Atta has not been officially charged, this, they say, is on the warrant, which they say was procured through the manipulation of evidence.
I see. Well, Samir Akon is a private legal practitioner. He heads the Communications Research and Operations of the Special Prosecutor's Office. He's been responding to some of the things that you spoke about, or this notice purportedly to be from the family of Ken Ofori-Atta touched on. And I spoke to him on key point, and he indicated why they needed him in person, and then what's going to happen after this Interpol red notice that has been published on Interpol's website. Take a look. What happens after this red notice that has been published now?
What happens is that Interpol would have to place him under arrest, and then Attorney General would work on the extradition processes, and whatever it is that the account in the process of the extradition will take place. So that means nobody is interested in keeping anybody for anything. We are saying that allow us to do our investigation. There may be good reason why we want to see Mr. Ofori-Atta. You are saying that it may not be necessary for us to just go ahead and say that we are the ones doing the investigation. And we know why we need Mr. Ofori-Atta. And it's not because Mr. Ofori-Atta says that I need to take my caution statement, or because somebody said try him, a sensible process in the form of a criminal thing. We are saying that it's not that. Allow us to do the job we are doing. Your suggestions are well taken, but allow us to do our job. And when we are done, we will let you know why we needed Mr. Ofori-Atta. You want to know it now. We are saying that you don't know whether giving it out will compromise investigations or not. What we ought to tell Ghanaians, we have come out to safely tell Ghanaians about it.
Well, Christian Mamhesi is a private legal practitioner, and he's been following this case quite closely, and he joined us on Zoom. I appreciate your time, Counsel, for connecting with us here on Ghana Tonight. After this publication, the red notice, the family is asking that this purportedly be taken down. But then again, it's not going to be that straightforward, isn't it? I mean, the OSP says they're hoping that after the publication, the processes will kick in to have Ken Ofori-Atta either located and then eventually extradited back to Ghana. But is this going to be straightforward from what you do know?
Good evening, sir, and good evening to your viewers alike. I'd maintain from the one that it is never a straightforward matter. When it comes to the law of extradition, there is always a principle statement that says that law of extradition is a simple matter in mention, but it is a complex matter in practice. Yes, the red notice has been issued. It is just one aspect of the leg. It is notice to Interpol countries. And as it had been, the countries have been named underneath the notice, it applies. Now, it has been narrowed more from the many other countries to two countries, that's UK and US. It stands to say that while we now know that Mr. Ofori-Atta is in the US at Mayo Clinic for medical treatment, extradition does come with legal battle. And on your platform the last time, I cited cases where even in Ghana, where extradition had happened, it didn't go without a fight. So the OSP or the government of Ghana, as it would be, should expect a fight from Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta, because even in the Ghana courts at the Human Rights Court, Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta is fighting for his rights. And just I'd also maintain in explaining little of jurisprudence to the public, it is always maintained that with a duty comes a right. So that where an institution is conferred, what we see in positivism, we say it's a power conferred on an institution. Whatever duty it seeks to impose, the effect of it on the other side is that it would cause the incidence of right, and that incidence of right would have a legal record. So Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta, believing that his rights will be trampled upon, or there'll be a fraction with the law, would want to fight back. And so that is going to make the extradition process not a simple one, but a complex one. And it goes to the principle that I mentioned. Also, Ghana, we had the case of Republic versus Director of Prisons, ex-parte Alute, where I indicated the last time that, couples who had engaged in cocoa transaction, albeit fraudulent, the U.S. government sought their extradition after the notice was put out there. Yes, after they were detained. So that's the extent that the security service would do. They will procure the person and detain the person, but it requires the legal process to also follow, and they sought to challenge the whole process. However, they challenged it. The court came to a decision that indeed the offense charged them is extraditable. Is an extraditable offense under the law, and such laws exist both in the U.S. and in Ghana. And by diplomatic means, the laws of treaty and also the state laws, such persons ought to be extradited. And I also mentioned the case of the same Republic versus Director of Prisons, ex-parte Schumann, which flowed from a Nazi fugitive who had hid himself in Ghana, and upon discovery, such person was also extradited.
Right.
But he also put in a fight for his right. But at the end of the day, the law concluded on him that he ought to go. So it's never going to be a simple process for the OSP. It's one thing putting the person on red notice, and it's another thing extraditing the person to Ghana.
We'll see how the coming days will look like on this. Christian Mamhesi, appreciate you for this as well, and adding your legal understanding to how.
Thank you for having me, sir.
Thank you. He's a private legal practitioner. Christian Mamhesi, this is Ghana Tonight. Coming up next, we go into the matters of the strike by the Ghana Registered Nurse and Midwives Association. That's the strike by the Ghana Registered Nurse and Midwives Association. That's the conversation we're getting into right now here on Ghana Tonight. And the strike is biting so hard, and really it's not looking good as we speak. The government and the Registered Nurses and Midwives Association have failed to reach an agreement on the implementation of the conditions of service for nurses and midwives. Now, we'll take a look at this. And earlier today, we got information that there was a closed-door meeting between the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association and then also the Ministry of Health and other stakeholders within the health sector in the country. Unfortunately, there was no resolution to the concerns by the Registered Nurses and Midwives, reason why they are on strike. And we're hearing that this meeting might continue in the coming days, but they are yet to reach a consensus following hours of these closed-door negotiations. Despite that injunction notice served by the National Labour Commission halting the ongoing strike, the public hospitals, the services across the country continue to face significant disruption. And Samuel Akologo is going to be joining us in a bit, but we're going to be hearing as well from the Director General of the Ghana Health Service, Professor Samuel Kaba Akoriye, who spoke at the press conference earlier today. Take a look.
To take the opportunity to call on our sisters and brother nurses to come back to work. Just like yesterday, I said to one nurse that if you come to the hospital now, you as a nurse, and you are pregnant, you are going to deliver, because she was a pregnant nurse. What are you going to say? Will you say, I won't deliver today because we are on strike? You'll be shouting, let's all do this. Let's go back to the negotiation table. If it's your auntie, your mother who is sick, what are you going to do? Will you say, I won't take her to the hospital because we are on strike? And when you go to the hospital, who do you expect to take care of your mom or you yourself? So I humbly add my voice to the Honorable Minister that please come back to work and let's continue negotiating.
Well, so that's the appeal from the Director General of the Ghana Health Service there, but we'll be finding out whether this appeal has fallen on listening ears or otherwise. Samuel Akogo is the Vice President of the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association. He's joining us on Zoom. Austin Gama is a labor expert, is going to be joining us as well. But Mr. Akogo, appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us. First of all, let's establish this. We understand that there was this closed-door meeting earlier today between yourselves as the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association and the Minister of Health, and then also some major stakeholders in the health sector. What transpired at that meeting and how did it end?
Very much, Alfred, to you and your team, and then our cherished viewers and listeners. Yes, it is true. We're invited for a meeting this morning at the instance of the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission. And this meeting included all the chief executives of all the teaching hospitals, representation from Ministry of Finance, representation from Ministry of Labor, representation from Ministry of Health. It was hosted at the Ministry of Health Conference Hall. When we got the invitation, as you can recall, this process started about last week. We're thinking that at long last, the Ghanaian nurse and midwife will get a relief and be very active at work. Unfortunately, we got there, and the proposal from government was that, yes, indeed, they acknowledge the delay. They have also acknowledged that we deserve whatever that is contained in the document. But they have budgetary constraints. And for that matter, we have to hold on until 2026 for the conditions of service to be implemented. And this is where some of us now confirm our earlier belief that the employer had no intention of implementing our conditions of service, and that those series of meetings that they were engaging us on were just to pretend to be solving the problem when indeed they had no actual interest in dealing with the issue. As we speak now, all other health professionals in the other unions comprising of Ghana Medical Association, Health Services Workers Union, Physician Assistants Association, Certified Registered Nurses Association. We signed the conditions of service almost at the same time. DS was implemented, but ours, because of the court case that we had, it is impossible for the employers to same. Now, if they say we are essential workers and we are being treated like this, is it fair? And I have realized that sometimes when some of these actions, because the public don't know what is behind the scenes, sometimes they think we are being unfair to people of Ghana. But we are in a situation where me and my colleague, who is another health professional, is enjoying a certain conditions of service, which is also contained in mine. And mine, they say, okay, we to wait. When they table their proposal, we also table a counter proposal. And we say, look, the challenge could be the arrears, because the document's implementation should have started in July 2024. But because of the court issue, it drags up to January. At least in December, we had resolved the court issue, and we applied for the and distributed all the stakeholders that is the obstacle that was restraining our employers from implementing the conditions of service. So that burden has been taken away. But unfortunately or fortunately on our part, that was the transition period in January. We initiated engagement with the then chief director, who was also communicating to the chief of staff, who was by then had been appointed already. And all this, we're doing this because we know it will have budgetary implications.
Right.
They cannot say that the 2024, that they were implementing the other health professionals' conditions of service, that of nurses was not catered for in the 2024 budget. It will be absurd for somebody to believe that the government would have selected those other unions and leave that of nurses and midwives. So members were putting pressure on us, and we kept on explaining. This is a new government that has come into power, and we have to give them time. Let them set the governance architecture. And based on that, we can see where we can ventilate some of these things. Minister was appointed, budget was read. So what is the problem? For us today, they told us that they could not capture it in the budget. The fact that the health professionals are enjoying some of the things that we are asking for makes it unacceptable for us to say, okay, we can, after even, unfortunately on our part, not getting anything from last year, up to this year, we are now being told that we have to wait until 2026. My brother, do you think this is fair? Do you think this is how they treat essential service providers?
Well,
what the government is just telling us, let me say employer, because we actually don't deal with governments. We deal with employers. And our employer is the Ministry of Health. The mandate to take care of the health of Ghanaians is in their hands. So if they feel we don't deserve this small token that we are asking for,
no, I'm going to
then we cannot be classified as essential service providers.
Right. I'm going to get into the small token you're asking for, but let me acknowledge the presence of Austin Game. He's a labor expert. He's joining us as well. Mr. Game, good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, my brother, and thank you for having me.
Now, the narrative of the Registered Nurses and Midwives Association being unfair because their strike is early in the day for this administration, you hear Mr. Akogo also then ask the question whether they've been treated fairly, because some of the things that they are asking for, even though the outcome of this, their closer engagement today, Mr. Game, is that the ministry says it wasn't budgeted for, so they have to wait till 2026. They are not buying that. Reason being, some of the health professionals in this country are enjoying some of the things they are asking for already. And they is asking how fair that is. Is it a concern that you would buy into and also ask that government looks at that, or that concern government raises that this has not been budgeted for, so give us some time and then wait till 2026?
Thank you. I really appreciate the difficulties that both parties find themselves in. And I empathize with the nurses as well, to be very honest with you. I've worked with them closely, including my friend who is speaking to you now, with you now. Unfortunately, they didn't invite me to this meeting, and so I wasn't there when this decision was made to embark upon the strike action. Perhaps I would have accompanied them to more volatile issues in the past than this. I've accompanied them to virtually every meeting they've been going. So I'm surprised they decided to sideline me at this point in time. We have a brand we have to protect. We don't support things that are in error. So I want to suggest to them that both sides should not take entrenched position in matters of this nature. Because as I've told them several times, they have a constituency, a customer they have to take care of. And so nothing, absolutely nothing should lead them to go and not giving the services they normally would give based on their own charter, based on their condition of service, based on the rules we have agreed to before the same negotiation they are talking about now. So I think that both the employer, and I agree with him, I don't like to call this employer government because it takes you to the level of partisan politics. So the employer will have to sit with them and they will have to sit with the employer. They have to obey all the rules, both sides. That is why we have set up a National Labor Commission, so that in the unlikely event of any disagreement, let me hasten to let them know that even if you have completed negotiation by implication of the law under Section 108, when there is an industrial dispute, and this is a dispute, they want something implemented, the employer says, I cannot do it now. It becomes a dispute. So they have to manage these differences. In the absence of they themselves managing the differences, somebody private will have to sit between them, or the National Labor Commission will sit between them and assist them to resolve the differences. Unfortunately, both parties have gone overboard, and they have gone to the extent of being on strike now.
I see, yes, but the NLC you talk about, Mr. Game, they secured an injunction on this strike, but the strike is still ongoing. So do you think the NLC would be that kind of mediator that would get them to achieve this compromise that you talk about?
The NLC is not a mediator. The NLC is a facilitator. They facilitate a process to get you to have the matter resolved. If you need mediation, there'll be mediators who are there to assist you mediate in the matter, or you have a voluntary arbitration under 157. And because they are essential service, their matter ought to be resolved 72 hours. If they are unable, and it's not one-sided matter, if they are unable to have the matter resolved, if they elect to have it done through mediation, fine. Okay. Otherwise, the Labor Commission will be ceased to operate under 164 and have a compulsory arbitration done for them, and the outcome is binding, just like you go to Supreme Court.
Right.
That is what arbitration does.
Okay. Mr. Gamai, I want you to hold on a bit for me. And Mr. Akogo, you were saying that you are asking for something small. We got our sources within your meeting earlier today, and we got information on some of the things you are asking for. We're going to put that on the screen right now and confirm that for me if it is indeed the case. First off, we got information that you're asking for fuel allowance for senior midwives and senior nurses, uniform allowance, book and research allowance, rural incentive allowance. These are some, not all, some of the details in the collective agreement that you are insisting be implemented now. So just give a bit more detail. Exactly what are you asking for in this collective agreement that you're asking be implemented now?
The collective agreement contains, we have fuel allowance, which is meant for a certain category of senior midwifery and nursing officers. We have the uniform allowance. You know, per our practice, we are supposed to wear uniform at all times. At a stage, the facilities used to provide, but it got to a point for a very long time, nobody was providing uniform. We didn't ask that we want to come to work with uniform. It is the employer who wants a big identity. When we negotiated for uniform allowance in 2020, and we're able to get 400 cedis. This new negotiation, we're able to push it out to 1,000 Ghana cedis. And this is one one-time payment once a year. Even what we presented, the actual amount of producing 2 sets of uniform, was beyond, but anything, but because that is what they said they could offer, and we couldn't go further. We have the research, book and research allowance, which is meant for our academic wins, the tutors and the lecturers. It is not for every lecture. There is a qualification criteria that you have to meet before you can access this fund. That is also one-time payment every year. Then we go to talk about our heartbeat, the rural incentive allowance, the existing conditions of service that we are running on now. It is contained in it. It was not implemented because at that time they said it was difficult to ascertain which area is deprived and which area is not. Are we really serious in this country? So how do we plan our development agenda if we don't even know which areas are deprived and which areas are not? But thank God, a technical committee did some work and they were able to identify which areas are deprived areas and which areas are not. And the Ghana Health Service is even using it for its promotion purposes. This is also going to be solely for those in the rural areas, those in the deprived areas. It is not all nurses in the country that will benefit from it.
I see. So
we have the non-basic 8% allowance. The market premium that nurses and midwives are enjoying was supposed to be hinged to the basic salary.
I see.
That was the initial plan. That was how it was supposed to be implemented.
Great. Mr. Akogo, appreciate you for this. And Mr. Government, maybe in a minute on this one. These are the demands they are asking for in this collective agreement, which has been signed last year. They want to implement it this year. And they say they are open to dialogue, but not to negotiation. They will not renegotiate the terms. That's their position they're going into these meetings with. Mr. Game.
Well, if I were to be with them, I know exactly what I'll tell them. I can't say it on air, as I mentioned to you earlier today when you were speaking on your radio. To be very honest with you, they have a genuine case. They have a concern they are raising, but the approach will have to be mitigated with the concern of the customers they serve, because the customers they serve are very important, just as their condition of service. And should anybody lose his life on whose hand is this blood? So I think that I want to plead with them, just as I know them. And I appreciate, I know the gentleman speaking to you. They are very fine people. They are not politicians, and I don't think they are doing politics. And so it's important that, because there are several of them I know there that are both NDC, MPP, and so forth. And so I know all of them. So I want to plead with them. They should go back to work. We can sit and negotiate. And negotiation is not something that is a strange word. They should accept any engagement, any dialogue, anything is negotiation. So it is not a strange word. If I were to be with them, I would have guided them. But I think that it's not too late. They should accept to handle this matter with care.
I appreciate you. Also, Game is a labor expert. Also, Samuel Akogo is the Vice President of the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us here on Ghana Tonight. Coming up next, the minority in Parliament, they addressed a press conference earlier today, raising questions about this fuel levy. They say they want government to go back to the table and come back with a downward review of this levy. Stay with us. We'll be back shortly. The minority in Parliament has accused the NDC government of betraying public trust with the sudden introduction of the energy sector levy. They argue the move marks a complete reversal of the party's earlier stance against such taxes, describing it as hypocritical and deceptive. They earlier addressed a press conference. Take a look.
In a 360-degree turnaround and in a stark contrast to all its promises, has in less than 6 months imposed on Ghanaians the very levy they swore they never will. The NDC, then in opposition, swore that it will never impose taxes to pay for the inefficiencies in the energy sector. This is hypocrisy of the highest order. This is a betrayal of the public trust. His Excellency President Mahama on May 13, 2025, this is what he said, and I quote, "We are using the proceeds from the energy sector levy to pay down the arrears," unquote. Honorable John Jinapo, the energy minister, also on June 4, 2025, this is what also he said. "This levy is not intended to pay off legacy debt. So, which is which? This bill was never advertised on the order paper for the day. In fact, it was not even discussed at the business committee meeting prior."
This particular levy, at the first instance, the government is charging the people of Ghana 8%. And this is one of the highest rates at first instance in terms of taxation. While the e-levy had a limited cascading effect, this Dumsor levy has a total 100% cascading effect because it affects transportation.
Kojo Ponkoma, he is ranking on the Economic Committee of this Parliament, and Joe Jackson is a financial analyst. He's joining us for a quick one on this. Mr. Jackson, they talk about, the minority says there are alternatives government could have explored, but based on where you sit, is it one that was readily considerable by government as a minority is proposing?
Well, first of all, you've got to remember that some of us have been talking about how big this energy debt issue is and how it is hanging over our necks and threatens to derail every good thing that we have done. The ESLA debt in the initial years of the previous regime came down, then it ballooned again. And some of it was even effectively mortgaged for money up front. The debt was not going down, it was rising. Something had to be done. Something had to just give. And there was no way we could have continued this way. Now, some of us have always said that, listen, Ghana is broke. We are not out of the woods yet. Things are getting better, but there are a lot of headwinds coming against us. And the issue simply is this. There's no really hard decisions to be taken. When we said we didn't want e-levy, when we said we didn't want this, we didn't want that tax, we didn't want that, we have to remember that there's only one pocket, and that pocket was practically empty.
No. Mr. Jackson, appreciate your time on this, and point well made there. Thank you so much for joining us here on Ghana Tonight. There's more news on 3news.com. Make some time and visit 3news.com. On behalf of the rest of the team, we do appreciate your company. I am Alfred Ocansey. Have a good night.
Ghana Tonight is brought to you by Flamingo Paint. Superior durability, superior hiding, superior coverage, simply superior.
Sasso insecticide spray and coil.